Pretika Medtech delivers embedded, connected wound care technology to monitor the healing process of acute and chronic wounds. That way you don't have to remove bandages and casts and wraps. So with me, CEO Thomas Nichols to talk about this company. And let's just start with what problem Pretika is looking to solve.
Well, thank you very much, Jane. The current state of the medical industry is that in monitoring wounds, clinicians have two methods. One is to bring the patients in on an inpatient basis to remove the dressings, or on an outpatient basis where they send out remote monitoring teams such as nurses to the home to remove the dressings and then to evaluate. Okay. And our technology is that Pretika is creating a whole new category within remote patient monitoring with our connected wound care technology that allows clinicians to monitor the healing process of acute and chronic wounds without having to remove the dressings or bring the patients in for in-person or outpatient visits. Mm-hmm.
So this makes it easier on everybody. It sounds like it's involved from the healthcare personnel to as well as the patient to be able to monitor this and only really come in or do anything different if there's a problem.
Yes, right? Because on the problem side, if wounds, both acute and chronic, are not managed in the right way in terms of the timing of visits, you have incredible complications that are faced to the clinicians. And that is, for example, a 61% incidence rate of infection, a 50% incidence rate of sepsis. And then there's also an overall 51% rate of negative outcomes. So if complications are not captured early enough, it leads to tremendous complications for the patient. And so this technology provides patient comfort, it provides great metrics to the clinicians, and lower healthcare costs.
What all data does the technology monitor?
In our first commercialization phase, it's monitoring imaging. We've developed a 4K imaging technology with a illumination of LEDs because this technology is embedded within wound care dressings, casts, or disease monitoring wraps so that clinicians can monitor the healing process. And so this technology is embedded within the wound care dressings and it takes images and then it sends it up seamlessly into the EHR patient record system so it can be diagnosed and monitored by clinicians. When we look in terms of the science of the technology, it first begins with 4K technology. And so this is the technology of the camera element as well as the lens element. And the field of view is so important to the type of wound for clinicians to the monitoring aspect of it and will define what type of wound this can work with. So our technology is just not centered around one camera or one lens, but overall we can generate an array of cameras and lenses to create a much larger field of view for those wounds that are larger. And to support that technology, we utilize LED technology to create a full spectrum of light to illuminate the wound. And one of the other aspects is we are powered by our own battery for consumption. And so our device technology, when it's not in use, it's in a sleep mode. That allows this device to really work from a 2 to 6 week period of time on acute wounds without having a charge. And that 2 to 6 weeks is the typical acute wound healing process time. But also for chronic wounds that are going to be monitored full time on the disease side, this can be recharged by induction charging. So the induction charger just has to be placed over the cast, the disease monitoring wrap, or the surgical dressings, and it can recharge. So great technology within this. And of course, the PCBA component, it's flex technology or it's solid technology because this device, it's designed to be able to fit over the curvature of the body. For example, what if it's a neurology type of surgery? It has to be able to conform to that shape of the skull. or if it's cardiac or orthopedic, it can shape and adjust to that area of the body.
Where does then that data go? How does a physician access it, and what happens for the patient after that?
The technology provides both continuous and pre-scheduled frequency of images to be sent into the EHR, that patient record.
Okay.
So clinicians can go in real time and look at it, or they can have the device technology just send it right up to them on a per frequency basis, such as an example would be one time per week or twice a week or twice a day. So clinicians have the control. And so it's going to allow them to monitor and diagnose the healing process of the wound.
So you're looking at healing, making sure that's all going well. Infections, is there any other data that it's gathering?
Certainly, because we get the data on the patient, the type of wound or the surgery performed, whether it's acute or chronic, the type of medicaments that are used on that patient. And now we have the ability to take the data of that time for healing by wound or by category. And so it's just not the real-time or current information on the healing process that we obtain. It's that total treatment time of information that we obtain that can really benefit the clinicians, because in advance they can look at our historicals and say, well, based upon this surgery type, this is what we can expect, and this is the type of wound care dressing that was used, and these are the types of medicaments that were used. Great information for clinicians to see before they treat the patient.
Yeah, and they're gathering data, so that might help in future treatments as well, what
Yes,
works. And so,
exactly.
Tell me about the approval for this. Does this need to be FDA approved? What's the regulatory environment around this?
We're a Class 2 device. And so from the FDA standpoint, through their guidance, we are now a Class 2 device through the clearance process as a Class 2 under the code or classification LLZ. And why that's important is because we need to have a Class 2 designation to maximize the most in terms of reimbursement codings, the CPT, CMS, the medical side of it on healthcare reimbursements. And this allows us to do that as a monitoring device. So we're going to be able to capture the highest levels of reimbursement, not only on the imaging side of it, but also on the communication side or telehealth, and also on the wound dressing side.
Oh, interesting. Are there wounds that it works particularly well on?
We look at it as a learning process, because as we meet with clinicians in the wound care side and in different areas of practices within medical and surgical healthcare, we're looking at, for example, wound care that's acute and chronic that requires patient monitoring, number one. And that covers a vast number of surgeries and wounds. And on the chronic side, on the disease monitoring side. So it's an incredible opportunity to have a very large market potential for this device technology.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, how big the market is. So I guess surgeries, this would involve severe wounds, things like that. Do you have any kind of numbers behind that? Or
So the driving factors are, there are 50 million surgeries that are performed annually here just in the US alone. And within that, the overall market for digital health monitoring devices is $4.75 billion globally. So you have a tremendous total market value for this technology. And where the connected wound care technology, overall sales and revenue for commercialization will fall, it will be on that higher spectrum. Because this is a new category that we're pioneering, that we're developing and creating, and there is much need for this. Because the future of wound care, it's connected and data-driven.
yeah.
And we provide that with connected wound care technology.
Tell me about the roadmap for the company. Where do you go from here?
Well, it's all about confirming the science. It's all about confirming the technology and within the device. And then it's all about the FDA, and it's about the healthcare. How do we benefit the healthcare industry in terms of savings? But our technology, we have the ability to go right into the cloud with privacy and security. But I think more importantly, when you look at healthcare, it's about where we are in the future of this device technology. The first commercial launch will be centered and focused on the imaging technology and how that benefits the clinicians. But when we look at phase 2 and phase 3 launches that we've covered within our patents, we have the ability to add into this technology the ability for monitoring with therapeutics. We can build in UVC light so that we can treat infections, or a chamber to dispense medicaments, and that it can become really its own diagnosis of a device so clinicians get a lot more metrics in detail. So the future is incredible, and that's what is really the strong aspect that we really have within this connected wound care technology device.
Yeah, Thomas, thank you so much. So
We really
interesting.
appreciate it, Jane. Thank you very much.